Hey guys! In the last video, we talked about why and how fishing in the ocean, when used as a training ground, can lead to creating capable, altruistic, adaptable leaders of the world, and that it can literally lead to world peace. Fishing equals world peace. That's what we talked about. If you haven't seen it already or are feeling a bit skeptical, please feel free to stop this one and go watch that first one. Oh, but please make sure you come back to finish this one. I'll leave the link for the other video below. Let's start. This is part 2 of the Ocean Providence video series. Today's topic is why ocean age is inevitable, and why that's right now, and how Reverend Moon strategized to bring change to the world in the wake of this imminent ocean age using his fleet of boats. Reverend Moon proclaimed the coming of the ocean era multiple times, but as usual, it might not have exactly clicked in our heads, or the words might have gone right over them. Again, people might still be scratching their heads about this. Reverend Moon said, "History has proven that a nation which controls the sea will become the center of the world. We must prepare ourselves for the new oceanic era. The Pacific era is at hand. Anyone who cannot rule the ocean cannot become a leader in the Pacific age. If heavenly fortune comes and we are not prepared, we cannot take advantage of this opportunity." In the year 2007, Reverend Moon declared the Pacific Rim era titled, "A Providential View of the Pacific Rim Era in Light of God's Will, the United States and the Future Direction of the United Nations and the World." In that speech, he said the following: "Consider the history of civilization, which began centering on 4 of the world's great rivers. We are familiar with the Egyptian civilization that flourished along the Nile River, the Mesopotamian civilization between the Tigris and the Euphrates, the Harappan civilization on the Indus River, and early Chinese civilization around the Yellow River. The center of civilization shifted over time to the shores of the Mediterranean Sea, where the Mediterranean peninsular civilizations flourished in Greece and Rome. History continued to progress, and the European continental civilization emerged. This continental civilization in turn gave birth to an island civilization, Great Britain, which flourished in the Atlantic sphere. The British Empire, which dominated the 7 seas and wielded its might as the empire in which the sun never sets, passed its splendid culture on to North America. Through the victories of the First and Second World Wars and the Third Cold War, it won victory over totalitarianism and communism. However, that victory does not simply mean that America is great. The development of human civilization did not stop there. Victory came because God had chosen and raised the United States of America as the second Israel, in accordance with his providential plan, and had raised and trained the American people through Christianity. God worked through America to bring his providence to its present stage of fruition. Ladies and gentlemen, the present time marks an important milestone in the development of civilization. Civilization has completed a circuit of the entire globe and has now arrived on the shores of the Pacific Ocean. History's course has come to the point under God's providence where it must be completed and concluded in the Pacific Rim region. That was quite a long quote. Let's break it down so we can better understand what he's talking about. First, let's start by looking at the overall flow of history in terms of central civilizations at critical points in time. When we look at the history and flow of major civilizations, we can see one root civilization blossoming a major civilization. For example, the Minoan civilization based on Crete Island gave eventual birth to the first Rome, in other words, the Mediterranean civilization. Next, England, also an island nation, laid the foundation and gave birth to the second Rome, the United States of America. This was, in other words, the Atlantic civilization. And in this order, Pacific Island nations, including Japan, the Pacific Rim civilization, will give birth to the third Rome, which will be placed in Northeast Asia. You might have noticed, when we consider the earlier river-based continental civilizations such as the Mesopotamian, Harappan, and early Chinese civilizations, which are placed roughly in the mid-eastern to west of China regions, the flow of major civilizations went around the globe in one general direction, just as Reverend Moon said. Now, if we further dig deeper into each of these civilizations, we can see that it follows an interesting pattern of island to peninsula to continent. For example, if we look at the birth of First Rome, the roots took place on the Crete Island, or Minoa as the island civilization. This gave birth to the peninsular civilization of Greek-Roman civilization, and then it led to the birth of European civilization, which is a continental civilization. So it went in the order of island, peninsula, and then continent. If we look at the next major arc in history, England, it was also an island civilization. Then from there, the center of history moved on to New England, where the Pilgrim Fathers landed, which can be considered a peninsular civilization. Then it went ahead and gave birth to the American continental civilization. Again, it went from island, peninsula, and then to continent. Next, the flow of civilization is still turning, and we come to Japan, Hawaii, and the Pacific Island nations. These island nations are to give birth to a new oceanic civilization that will lead right into the peninsular civilization of Korea, where the third Rome is meant to blossom. Then it will bear fruit as a global civilization in the Korea-China continental region, often referred to by Reverend Moon as the Junwon Chonji. As you might have noticed, we should be somewhere around this stage right now. And you might also have noticed that the key civilization for each stage was an island-based culture and civilization. This is because when a culture is centered around ocean and naval technology, the civilization advances richer and faster than other surrounding civilizations, and inevitably leads to a blossoming of a major global power. This is in a way modeling what God intended for the human civilizations to follow. To review the three major civilizations, it went from the Mediterranean civilization to Atlantic civilization and to the Pacific Rim civilization in terms of global positioning. Take note, the Mediterranean civilization and the first Rome, from a theological point of view, was laying the foundation for Jesus to come and take on the world based on its influence and power. It would have led directly to an ideal global civilization if everything went according to plan, spreading across the globe. In anticipation of Jesus' coming, God directed the flow of civilization as we saw earlier in order to bring about a Rome, a peninsular civilization for the Messiah to take charge of. Here is a quote from Reverend Moon. Our mission in this era of Pacific Rim is to understand God's tearful heart when Jesus went to Israel, positioned in the top corner of the Mediterranean Sea with the hope of saving the entire humanity through dominating the four seas as Rome as its center, but ended with cruel crucifixion. And now he is planning to complete this through America. God prepared the American continent as the second Rome, just like the first Rome during the time of Jesus. In order to jumpstart the global civilization to take flight, Reverend Moon has hinted countless times that the Korean Peninsula will become the next and final third Rome. In his autobiography, he says, "The Atlantic civilization that has prospered until now is clearly facing a new era, the era of a pan-Pacific civilization that is on the rise. Asia, with Korea poised to take a central role, is becoming the lead actor in a new world history. It is inevitable that the Western and Eastern civilizations come together in harmony on the Korean Peninsula. As the world rapidly changes, heavenly fortune is moving in Korea's direction at an ever-increasing speed. However, if the Korean Peninsula is to properly perform its important role in leading the world to harmony and peace during an era of chaos, then it must prepare itself well. It must do away with the past marked with prejudice and selfishness, and greet the new age with clear eyes and a new heart." If we know that the oceanic era is about to begin, and Korea wants to be the leader of that era, then Korea must make the necessary preparations. The ocean era centered on the Pacific Rim is the Pacific Rim era, and it is now. The ocean tradition, culture, and civilization will give birth to a third Rome in the Korean Peninsula, and then it will lead to a global culture and civilization based in Korea-China region, the Junwon Chonji. In the Divine Principle, Chapter 6, Section 335, titled The Culmination of All Civilizations, we can also find the following passage. "The essences of all civilizations which developed on the land should bear fruit in Korea, with the United States passing on its culture to the island civilization of Japan. Now these fruits are to be harvested in the peninsular civilization of Korea. The essences of civilizations born on the shores of rivers and seas should bear fruit in the Pacific civilization to which Korea belongs. All these fruits will be harvested in the civilization of the Pacific Ocean, which links together the United States, Japan, and Korea." So now, we've established that the time is now where the oceanic culture must blossom. Now it might make sense why Reverend Moon had spent so much time, effort, and investment on the propagation of oceanic training, traditions, cultures, technologies, and businesses, especially in the American continent. Did you know that America has the largest global recreational boating market that continued to grow through 2018 and 2019, and despite the corona outbreak, the global market in this category is still expected to keep on growing. The NNMA announced that the recreational boating industry contributes an estimated $170.3 billion in economic activity to the US economy. Clearly, America is the doorway to the new oceanic era, and that is why Reverend Moon spent a considerable time and effort in developing oceanic activities in the US. It also explains why Reverend and Mrs. Moon, after moving their center of activities to Korea in the later years, invested heavily in the Yosu Ocean Resort area, Komundo Island, Jeju, and other Korean coastal locations in anticipation and preparation for this. Reverend Moon trained over 7,000 Japanese women in Yosu Training Center to undergo ocean captain training in hopes of bringing about this oceanic era in a way of pain of birth through the 7,000 Japanese women captains. The training workshops concluded in the year 2012. Did you know that Korea was the location of the World Expo that took place in 2012 in the same year? And do you know what they chose as the theme of the expo? It was ocean. Actually, we can now see that this marked the true coming of the Pacific Rim era. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we're now in the middle of a Pacific Rim era. From this viewpoint, we can see other various ways in which they were taking actions to get the nation ready for the imminent coming of the ocean era. Reverend Moon emphasized that the ocean era will not come without human effort, and that nations must take action to be ready for the flowing of heavenly fortune, or suffer amidst heavenly opportunity and providence. Reverend Moon even directly had a hand in making sure fish became a delicacy in America. Now people are crazy about sushi, sashimi, fish as a healthy food in general, but back in the day, many Americans didn't even glance at fish. But that's a story in itself, and it's for another day. Then, what is the practical strategy that Reverend Moon devised in order to bring about this oceanic era, culture, and civilization to the Americas, the Pacific Rim, Korea, and then to the world? He initiated multiple ocean-related businesses and projects and laid out to his members how to utilize these foundations to bring about concrete and practical change to society and the world, and at the same time, bring about an oceanic culture and civilization. We were going to get into the meat of that actual strategy in this video, but since it got a little longer than expected, let's hold on to the idea until our next one. In the next video, we'll talk about Reverend Moon's ocean strategy into bringing all the ideas we discussed earlier into a practical and substantive reality. And we'll get into the model he devised for the oceanic culture and civilization called the Ocean Hobby Industry Model Base, what it means and how it will look like. It's a model that can show the world in one fell swoop the ideal form of a society. It's an amazing plan, so stay tuned. It will be apparent how the creation of this model is the shortest path to bringing change to a nation and to the world. Let's end this video with some quotes once again. The oceanic era will not begin without human effort. We must first go out into the oceans. We must go out on boats and fight the waves. Without such courage, we cannot prepare ourselves for the oceanic age. The country that conquers the oceans will become a dominant power in the world and find the world eager to study its cultures and language. It must become the champion steward of the Pacific Ocean. It must understand the will of the Creator and manage his resources well. The oceans can become a central point for bringing the world together. To take ownership over the oceans, we must be trained to live on it with the same ease as we live on land. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. Remember, if you can't wait to find out more, we've uploaded many resources that you can explore at our website at oceanhobbyseminar.com at your own leisure. Please feel free to browse our resources section on the website to see various seminar materials from the past, as well as our blog section where we post news and updates on the Ocean Providence-based projects currently underway. And of course, if you have the time, please remember to share our video series with others, especially young people. Thank you again and hope you have a happy day.